The millionaire pretended to be a cleaner until she saw what they did to her autistic son. Jennifer Anderson couldn't sleep anymore. For the third time in 2 weeks, her son Ethan had come home with purple marks on his arms and a gaze even more distant than usual. She knew something was wrong, very wrong, but no one was giving any explanations. It was during an important meeting with Japanese investors that her phone rang for the 5th time. The principal of the most expensive private school in New York City was on the other end of the line, using that professional tone that hid something. "Mrs. Anderson, we need to talk about Ethan. He had another incident today." "What kind of incident?" Jennifer felt her stomach tighten. "It would be best if you came here in person." Jennifer hung up without saying goodbye to the investors. She grabbed her purse and ran out of the conference room, leaving her partner Catherine completely lost in the middle of the presentation. On the way to the school, her hands trembled so much on the steering wheel that she almost crashed the car twice. When she arrived, she found Ethan sitting in the principal's office, rocking his body back and forth as he always did when he was nervous. His eyes didn't meet hers. They never did. "What happened to my son?" Jennifer demanded answers. The principal, a middle-aged woman with thick glasses, cleared her throat before speaking. "Ethan got hurt during recess. Unfortunately, we don't know exactly how it happened because he was alone on the playground." "Alone? Shouldn't there be monitors?" "We have them, of course. But Ethan tends to wander away from the other students." Jennifer looked at her son. Ethan was 8 years old, with light blonde hair that she always kept cut too short because he didn't like feeling his hair touching his ears. His eyes were a very light blue, almost transparent, and rarely blinked. He kept rocking, oblivious to the conversation. "I want to see the security cameras," Jennifer said, trying to keep her voice steady. "The cameras don't cover that specific area of the playground." "How convenient," the principal sighed. "Mrs. Anderson, perhaps it's time to consider a school more suitable for Ethan's special needs." Jennifer felt as if she had been slapped in the face. She paid nearly $10,000 a month for that school precisely because they promised full inclusion. They promised Ethan would be treated like any other child. "My son stays," she replied coldly, "and I will find out what is happening here." She took Ethan home in silence. He spent the whole ride looking out the window, making a soft sound with his mouth that she knew was comforting for him. Jennifer tried to hold back the tears, but they came anyway. When they arrived at the mansion in one of the most upscale neighborhoods of New York City, the driver was already waiting. Jennifer dismissed everyone and took Ethan straight to his room. She helped her son change his clothes, noticing more marks on his arms and a small one on his neck. "Honey, can you tell me what happened?" she asked softly. Ethan didn't answer. He picked up his favorite toy, a colorful cube that he spun repeatedly, and sat on the floor. Jennifer left the room and went straight to her home office. She called the best private detective in New York City, a woman named Diane, who had previously worked on discrete cases for her company. "I need you to investigate my son's school," Jennifer said bluntly. "What kind of investigation?" "I want to know who is hurting Ethan. I want names, faces, evidence." Diane was silent for a moment. "I can do that, but it will take time. Private schools have many legal protections." "I don't care about the time. I only care about results." After hanging up, Jennifer realized she was alone at home. Her husband, Michael, was on yet another business trip. Or at least that's what he said. Lately, Jennifer wasn't so sure anymore. Their marriage had become a perfect facade for the outside world, but empty inside. She went back up to Ethan's room and found the housekeeper, Mrs. Martha, trying to convince the boy to eat dinner. "He doesn't want to eat again?" Jennifer asked. "It's harder than usual today," replied the housekeeper, a 60-year-old woman who had worked in the house for over 20 years. "But we'll manage, won't we, my dear?" Ethan kept spinning the cube. Jennifer felt a pang of guilt. She knew she spent too much time at work. She knew she should be more present. But building and maintaining a technology company worth hundreds of millions wasn't an easy task. Someone had to secure Ethan's financial future, especially considering he would probably need lifelong care. That night, Jennifer couldn't sleep. She lay staring at the bedroom ceiling, listening to Michael snoring beside her. He had returned from his trip a few hours earlier, mechanically kissed her forehead and fallen asleep immediately. By morning, everything changed. Jennifer woke up to a message from Diane. "We need to talk in person. Urgent." They met at a discreet cafe in the city center. Diane had folders full of documents and photos. "I found something, but you're not going to like it," the detective began. "Just tell me." "It's not at school. The marks on Ethan, they happen at home." Jennifer felt the world spin. "That's impossible. I trust everyone in my house." "Look at these photos." Diane placed several images on the table. "I got them through a contact who works at a temp agency. Your housekeeper, Martha, has a temporary replacement working on weekends when she's off. I know Amber. I hired her about 3 months ago." "Jennifer, Amber isn't who she says she is." Diane showed a fake ID photo and a real one. "Her name isn't Amber Williams, it's Rebecca Johnson. She has a history of theft from family homes." Jennifer felt nauseous. "But that doesn't explain the marks on Ethan." "It doesn't, but it made me investigate further, and I found this." Diane showed screenshots of conversations in a WhatsApp group. Jennifer recognized some of the numbers. They belonged to housekeepers working in neighboring homes. The messages talked about control methods with difficult children, techniques to make special needs children obey. Jennifer read with growing horror. "My God!" "There's more," Diane continued. "I spoke with a former housekeeper from a house 3 blocks down. She told me there's an informal group of caregivers who exchange experiences about dealing with demanding bosses and complicated children. Some use questionable methods." "Who? Who in my house would do this to Ethan?" "I'm not sure yet, but I need you to give me full access. Cameras, schedules, everything." Jennifer agreed immediately. But that night, as she watched Martha say goodnight to Ethan with such affection, she began to doubt. The longtime housekeeper would never hurt the boy. She had known him since he was a baby. It was then that Jennifer had an idea, a crazy, risky idea, but one that could work. The next day she called Diane. "I want to enter my own house as a housekeeper." "What? You said yourself these women have a closed group. They won't talk in front of the boss, but they would talk in front of a peer." "Jennifer, that's crazy. You'd be recognized immediately." "Not if I change my appearance and come in through a different agency. I can say I'm temporarily replacing someone." Diane fell silent, considering. "It would be risky and illegal on several levels." "I don't care. I need to know the truth." It took 2 weeks to arrange everything. Jennifer Anderson took medical leave from the company, claiming stress. Michael didn't even question it, just waved distractedly when she told him. Diane obtained fake documents through her contacts. Jennifer swapped her long, straight blonde hair for a curly black wig. She wore brown contact lenses. She traded her designer clothes for simple maid uniforms. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The employment agency was in a working-class neighborhood on the east side of New York City. Jennifer introduced herself as Mary Smith, a 35-year-old woman who urgently needed work to support her family. "I have an opening that might interest you," said the agency owner, a short woman named Gladys. "Big house on the Upper East Side, family with a special needs child. They pay well, but it's hard work." Jennifer pretended to be surprised. "Special needs child?" "Yeah, the boy is autistic. They've been through several maids already. The family is demanding." "I'll take it," Jennifer said quickly. "I have experience with children." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. 3 days later, Jennifer arrived at her own house through the service entrance. Her heart was beating so hard she was sure they would hear it. Mrs. Martha greeted her in the kitchen. "So you're the Mary the agency sent?" "Yes, ma'am." "You can just call me Martha. Here we don't have all that formality among ourselves, only with the employers." Jennifer observed every detail of the kitchen, as if seeing it for the first time. It was a huge space, fully equipped with state-of-the-art appliances she herself had chosen 2 years ago, but she had never really paid attention to what it was like to work there. "You'll be responsible for cleaning the upstairs bedrooms and helping with Ethan's care." Martha explained. "The boy of the house, he needs special attention." "What does he have?" Jennifer asked, pretending not to know. "Autism. He's a sweet child, but has his difficult days. Doesn't like loud noises, doesn't like people touching his things without asking, and needs everything to follow a very strict routine." "I understand." "The missus is on medical leave. Nervous problems. The mister travels a lot. So basically it's us who take care of Ethan most of the time." Jennifer felt each word like a stab. It was true. She had become so distant from her own son that the maids were his real caregivers. "Is there anyone else working here?" "There's Rebecca, who comes on Saturdays. The driver, George. The gardener, Susan, who comes twice a week. And there was Amber, but she was let go last week." Jennifer made a mental note. So Diane had managed to get the temporary replacement to leave. Good. Why was she let go? Martha lowered her voice. "Problems with her documents. But between us, I think the missus suspected something." "Suspected what?" "I don't know, but Amber was strange. Very closed off, didn't talk with us." At that moment they heard footsteps coming down the stairs. Jennifer turned and for the first time in 2 weeks saw her son. Ethan came down the steps slowly, one hand on the wall, the other holding his colorful cube. Jennifer's chest tightened. She wanted to run and hug the boy, but knew she couldn't. "Little Ethan, come meet Mary," Martha called in a sweet voice. "She's going to work here with us now." Ethan stopped on the last step and looked in their direction, but his eyes didn't focus on anything specific. He swayed slightly, as he always did. "Hi, Ethan," Jennifer said, trying to control the emotion in her voice. "Nice to meet you." The boy didn't respond, he just kept swaying. "Don't take it personally," Martha explained. "He doesn't really like new people. He'll get used to you little by little." Jennifer spent the rest of the day cleaning rooms she never cleaned herself, seeing her home from a completely different perspective. She found dust in places she never imagined, stains she never noticed, details that went unnoticed when living a life of luxury. But the most shocking thing was realizing how much she didn't know about her own son's routine. At noon, Martha prepared Ethan's lunch. Jennifer watched, fascinated and horrified at the same time, how the housekeeper knew exactly what to do. "His plate always has to be blue," Martha explained, "and the food can't be too hot. He doesn't like it. I let it cool for about 5 minutes before serving." "How do you know all this?" "I learned by watching him, of course. At first I made mistakes, left the food too hot or put it on the wrong plate, and he wouldn't eat anything all day. I had to learn the hard way." Jennifer felt ashamed. She didn't know about her son's preference for the blue plate. She didn't know he didn't like hot food. She didn't know anything. "And there's more," Martha continued. "He needs to always eat in the same spot at the table. If we change it, he gets agitated." "Always in the same spot?" "Always. 3rd chair from the left, facing the window because he likes to see the trees in the garden." Ethan entered the kitchen at that moment and, without needing any instruction, went straight to his chair. Martha placed the blue plate in front of him, and the boy began to eat slowly, methodically, chewing each bite exactly 20 times before swallowing. Jennifer noticed her eyes were getting teary. She blinked quickly before anyone noticed. After lunch, Martha took a break and the two sat in the laundry area to have coffee. "It must be hard working with a special needs child," Jennifer commented, trying to make conversation. "At first it was, but today I wouldn't trade Ethan for anything. He's sweet when you understand how he works." "Is his mother present?" Martha made a face. "The boss?" "Oh, honey, she barely has time to breathe. Always working, traveling in meetings. The boy spends more time with us than with her." "And the father?" "Even worse, he's always traveling. When he's home, he's locked in his office. He barely looks at Ethan." "But they love their son, right?" Martha sighed. "They do love him. But love alone doesn't raise a child. You need presence. You need to be there in the daily routine, in the tantrums, in the joys, in the difficult moments. And that's what they don't give to the poor boy." Each word was a stab in Jennifer's heart. But she knew Martha was right. Completely right. Have there been other housekeepers before? "Several. Most can't handle it. They think Ethan is difficult, complicated. They don't understand that he's not being stubborn, that his brain works differently. One only lasted 3 days." "What did she do?" Martha became serious. She tried to force Ethan to do things her way. He had such a bad nervous breakdown that he didn't speak for 3 days. Not even that little hum he does. I was so scared. Didn't the boss do anything? She didn't even really know about it. She was traveling. When she came back, the other housekeeper was already gone, and I said it hadn't worked out. Jennifer felt angry with herself. How could she be so disconnected from her own son's life? The afternoon passed slowly. Jennifer cleaned bathrooms, changed sheets, dusted furniture. Each activity was a reminder of how much work it took to keep that house running, work she had always considered invisible. Around 4 in the afternoon, she heard a sound coming from Ethan's room. It was a low, muffled crying. Jennifer dropped the floor rag and went there. She found the boy sitting in the corner of the room, rocking violently, his hands covering his ears. "What happened?" she asked, crouching beside him. Ethan didn't answer. He kept crying and rocking. Martha came running. "Let me handle this. You don't know his triggers yet." Triggers. Things that set him off. It could have been a noise outside, a change in the lighting, anything. Sometimes we never even figure out what it was. Martha approached Ethan slowly and began to hum a song softly. It was an old lullaby that Jennifer vaguely remembered from her own childhood. Gradually, Ethan began to calm down. His hands came away from his ears. His rocking became gentler. He rested his head on Martha's shoulder. Jennifer watched the scene with a broken heart. The housekeeper could calm her son in a way she herself never could. When Ethan finally settled completely, Martha took him to bed and stayed by his side until the boy fell asleep. "How did you learn to do that?" Jennifer asked when they left the room. "Patience and observation. Ethan can't tell us what he needs with words, so we have to learn to read his signals. The sounds he makes, how he moves, the way he breathes. It all tells a story." "Have you had experience with other special needs children before?" Martha grew quiet for a moment. "Yes. My daughter was autistic too." "Was?" The housekeeper's eyes grew moist. She's no longer with us. It's been 15 years. Jennifer felt a lump in her throat. She knew Martha had lost a daughter long ago, but she'd never asked for the details. She had never really cared to know the story of the woman who cared for her son. "I'm so sorry. That's life. But it was with my Emma that I learned all this. Every technique, every bit of patience, every way of understanding. And now I use everything I learned to care for Ethan as if he were my own child." That night, after her shift ended, Jennifer returned to the rented apartment she was using as a base. Diane was waiting for her there. "So? Did you find out anything?" Jennifer collapsed onto the sofa. "I found out I'm the worst mother in the world." "Don't be dramatic, you're doing your best." "No, Diane, you don't understand. I know nothing about my own son. Nothing. I don't know what his favorite food is. I don't know how to calm him down. I don't know what he likes or dislikes. The housekeepers know more about Ethan than I do. But you're changing that now. Is it too late?" Diane sat down beside her. "It's never too late to start being present. But tell me, did you see anything suspicious, anyone mistreating Ethan?" Jennifer shook her head. "No, Martha is wonderful with him. Patient, caring, attentive. She's everything I should be, and I'm not." "And the marks, where are they coming from?" "I still don't know. I need to observe more." The next morning, Jennifer returned to the mansion. She was determined to pay attention to every detail, every interaction, every moment of Ethan's routine. And it was during bath time that she noticed something strange. Martha had stepped out to answer the phone and asked Jennifer to keep an eye on Ethan, who was playing in his room with his toys. The boy was particularly agitated that day, rocking more than usual. Suddenly, Ethan stood up and started banging his head against the wall. Jennifer ran to him. "Ethan, stop, you're going to hurt yourself." But the boy continued. Bang, bang, bang. His forehead began to turn red. Jennifer tried to hold his arms, but Ethan was surprisingly strong when he was in crisis. He thrashed about, scratching his own arms with his nails, trying to break free. That's when Martha came running back. "Let him go," she ordered. "But he's hurting himself." "I know, but holding him only makes it worse. Let him." Martha grabbed cushions and placed them between Ethan and the wall. The boy continued banging, but now he was hitting the soft padding instead of the concrete. Gradually, exhausted, he began to stop. When he finally stopped, Ethan had red marks on his arms from all the scratching, and a small purple mark on his forehead. Jennifer felt as if she'd been punched in the stomach. He hurts himself. Martha nodded, exhausted. When he has a very bad episode, yes, I try to prevent it, but sometimes it happens so fast there's no time. How often does this happen? It depends on the week. Sometimes not at all. Sometimes 2 or 3 times. Always when he's very stressed or when his routine changes too much. And does Mrs. Anderson know about this? Martha stayed quiet. I tried to tell her, but she never has time to really listen to me, and when I do tell her, she gets so frantic that it ends up making things worse, making Ethan even more agitated. Jennifer needed to sit down. All those marks she had seen, all those times she had blamed the school, imagining horrors being done to her son. And the truth was that Ethan was hurting himself, and she didn't even know because she was never present enough to see it. "Is there a way to prevent these episodes?" she asked in a weak voice. "Keeping the routine is the main thing. Ethan needs predictability, waking up at the same time, eating at the same times, doing the same activities. When we change something without preparing him first, it increases the chance of an episode." "And lately, has his routine changed a lot?" Martha sighed. "Quite a bit. The missus is home because of medical leave, but she stays locked in her room. The mister has been traveling even more than usual. There was that whole mess with Amber being fired. Now you've arrived. It's a lot of changes for Ethan to process." Jennifer felt even worse. Her decision to disguise herself and enter her own home was causing her son more stress. She was creating the problem she was trying to solve. But she couldn't give up now. She needed to fully understand the situation before revealing the truth. The following days were the most difficult of Jennifer's life. She woke up at 5 in the morning, got ready in the rented apartment, put on the wig and contact lenses, and went to work in her own house. She spent the day cleaning, cooking, taking care of things. She saw Ethan from a distance, unable to hug him, unable to comfort him when he had episodes. But she was also learning about her son's likes, his fears, his joys, discovering a whole universe that had always existed, but which she had never taken the time to know. It was on a Thursday that everything changed again. Jennifer was cleaning Michael's office when she found a forgotten envelope among some documents. It was addressed to her husband, but it came from a clinical analysis lab. She shouldn't open it, she knew that. But something in her chest told her to open it. Inside was a DNA test. Jennifer read the result once, twice, 3 times. It couldn't be true. According to the test, Michael was not Ethan's biological father. She sat in the office chair, feeling like she was going to faint. How was this possible? She had never cheated on Michael. Never. Ethan was their son, she was absolutely sure of it. Unless the lab had mixed up the samples when Ethan was born, or that Michael had taken the test with the wrong people, or that the test itself was wrong. But there was another possibility. A possibility she had never considered. Jennifer remembered the day they decided to have a child. She and Michael had been trying for 2 years without success. The doctors suggested in vitro fertilization. They underwent several procedures at the most expensive clinic in New York City. What if something had gone wrong at the clinic? Jennifer grabbed her phone and called Diane. "I need you to investigate the fertility clinic where I had my treatment 9 years ago." "Why?" "Just investigate. Please." 2 weeks later, Diane showed up at the apartment with a grim expression. "You're not going to like what I found out. Just tell me." "The clinic where you had your treatment had a problem 9 years ago. There was a mix-up of embryos between 2 patients." Jennifer felt the ground vanish beneath her feet. Embryo swap? The clinic covered up the scandal. They paid a lot of money to the families involved to keep quiet. But I got the documents through a lawyer who worked on the case. And I was one of the families. Diane nodded. "You received another woman's embryo, and she received yours." "So Ethan isn't my biological son?" "Biologically, no, but he is your son in every other way." Jennifer couldn't process the information. 9 years. 9 years caring for a son who genetically wasn't hers. And yet, she had been a terrible mother. Who is the other woman? Ethan's biological mother? Diane hesitated. Are you sure you want to know? I am. Her name is Shauna Wilson, and you know her. What do you mean I know her? Diane took a photo from her bag and showed it to Jennifer. The world stopped. The woman in the photo was black, had dark hair, and a warm smile. She was hugging a child who looked about 10 years old. Jennifer knew that face, knew it very well. No, she whispered. Yes, Diane confirmed. Ethan's biological mother is Rebecca, the substitute housekeeper you fired, except her real name isn't Rebecca, it's Shauna. Jennifer felt like she was going to throw up. Did she know? Did she know Ethan was her biological son? I'm not sure, but from my documents, she received a settlement from the clinic around the same time you did. So she knows her biological son is out there somewhere. And she came to work in my house, looking for her son. Everything made sense now. The way Rebecca looked at Ethan, the extra dedication, the instinctive knowledge of how to care for him. A mother always recognizes her child, even without being sure. Something inside her knew. Where is she now? Working at another house. I got the address. Jennifer stayed up all night thinking. In the morning, she made a decision. She needed to find Shauna. She needed to talk to her to understand what was happening. But first, she needed answers from the clinic itself. Jennifer removed her disguise for the first time in weeks and went to the fertility clinic as herself. She demanded to speak to the director. Mrs. Anderson, what a surprise, the man said, clearly nervous. How can I help you? You can start by explaining how the hell you swapped my embryo with another patient's. The director turned pale. Don't lie to me. I have the documents. I know everything. The man slumped in his chair. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. The employee handling the embryos was having a very bad day. She mixed up the labels on 2 samples. And you hid this for 9 years? We paid settlements. We thought it would be enough. You paid for our silence. It's different. Jennifer stood up. I want all the documents about the swap. I want to know who the child born from my embryo is. I want everything. The director nodded, defeated. 3 days later, Jennifer had all the documents, and she discovered that the child born from her genetic embryo was dead. According to the records, Shauna had a son named Noah. The boy was born healthy, but died at 3 years old due to complications from a rare disease. Jennifer cried for hours. She cried for the son she never knew. She cried for Shauna, who lost a child. She cried for Ethan, who was caught in the middle of this whole mess. And then she understood. Shauna no longer had Jennifer's biological son, but Jennifer still had Shauna's biological son. Ethan was the only connection that remained between them and the babies they had carried. That was why Shauna had come to work in the house, not to steal or cause harm, but to be close to the only child she had left, even if only genetically. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. Jennifer needed to confront Shauna, but she didn't know how to do it without destroying everything. It was Diane who suggested it. Why don't you talk to her as Mary? You're still undercover in her house. You can approach Shauna as a co-worker, gain her trust, and then reveal everything gradually. It wasn't a perfect idea, but it was the best they had. The following Saturday, Jennifer found out that Shauna worked at a house in Williamsburg. She arranged to be job hunting in the area and bumped into Shauna by chance on the street. "Hi?" Jennifer said, feigning surprise. "Didn't you work at the Andersons' house?" Shauna looked at her cautiously. "I did. You're Mary, the new housekeeper there, right?" "I am. What a coincidence to run into you here." "Yeah." Shauna didn't seem too thrilled about the encounter. "Want to grab a coffee?" Jennifer suggested. "We can chat about work." Shauna hesitated, but ended up accepting. They went to a nearby bakery. Jennifer ordered coffee and grilled sandwiches for both of them. They sat at a table in the back. "So, why did you leave the Andersons' house?" Jennifer asked, trying to sound casual. "Issues with documentation," Shauna replied, stirring her coffee. "Documentation. It's complicated, and how's it been working there?" "Interesting. The boy, Ethan, is such a sweetheart." Shauna's face changed when Jennifer mentioned Ethan. A light appeared in her eyes. "He really is, isn't he? A special boy." "Did you enjoy working with him?" "I did." Shauna's voice faltered a bit. "I really did." "So why did you leave then? Just because of the documentation?" Shauna was quiet for a long moment. "Mary, can I tell you something? But you have to promise not to tell anyone." "I promise." Shauna took a deep breath. "I had a son. He's not here anymore. It's been years. And when I first saw Ethan, I felt a connection. I know it sounds crazy, but it was like my heart recognized him." Jennifer felt tears starting to form. She held her coffee cup tightly to keep from shaking. "It doesn't sound crazy," she said softly. "It sounds like a mother's love. But I'm not Ethan's mother. I'm just a housekeeper who stayed too long and got attached. Or maybe it's more than that." Shauna looked at Jennifer with surprise. "What do you mean?" Jennifer almost told her everything right then. She almost revealed who she really was. The whole truth about the embryo switch, everything. But something stopped her. "I just mean that sometimes we feel things that go beyond logic," she replied vaguely. "Did you try to go back to work there?" "I tried. But the boss sent me away. I think she got suspicious of me." "Suspicious of what?" "I don't know. Maybe she saw that I was taking care of Ethan too much, that I was getting more attached than I should." "And do you think that's wrong?" "I think it's dangerous," Shauna admitted, "because at the end of the day, he's not my son. He never will be. And I need to accept that." Jennifer wanted to scream that she was wrong, that Ethan was indeed her son, biologically, that Shauna had every right to get attached because that boy came from her body, from her cells. But she said nothing. They finished their coffee in silence. When they said goodbye, Shauna hugged Jennifer quickly. "Thanks for listening to me. It's been a while since I talked about this with anyone." "Any time you need," Jennifer replied. That night, Jennifer had such a bad crying fit that Diane had to come to the apartment to calm her down. "I'm a fraud," Jennifer sobbed. "That woman loves Ethan more than I do. She takes better care of him than I do. She's the real mother." "Don't be ridiculous. You're Ethan's mother. You raised him for 8 years. "Raised him? I was always working." "It was the maids who raised him, especially Martha." "But you're changing that now. Isn't it too late? Have I lost my son forever?" Diane held Jennifer's shoulders. "Listen to what I'm going to tell you. You made mistakes, many mistakes, but it's never too late to start over. Ethan needs you, and you need him." "What about Shauna? She's the biological mother. She has rights." "That's a conversation to have with lawyers, but first you need to be honest. With her, with yourself, with Ethan." Jennifer knew Diane was right, but the idea of telling the whole truth scared her so much that she was paralyzed. The following Monday, Jennifer returned to the mansion as Mary, but this time it was different. She was more attentive, more present. She observed every interaction with Ethan, every moment, every detail. That's when she noticed something she had never seen before. Martha had an old notebook that she carried everywhere. Whenever Ethan did something new, had a different reaction, or went through an important situation, she would write it down. Jennifer waited for Martha to leave to answer a call and quickly grabbed the notebook. What she read made her sit on the floor. The notebook was a complete diary about Ethan. Every page had dates, times, detailed descriptions of behaviors. But that wasn't all. Martha also wrote reflections, thoughts about motherhood, about absence, about love. Today the boss called saying she would be late again. Ethan waited by the window for her for 2 hours. When he finally gave up, he cried softly in the corner of the room. My heart broke. She doesn't know what she's missing. Ethan learned a new word today, mommy. But when he says it, he's looking at me. I don't know if I'm happy or sad. The boss was away traveling for 3 days. Ethan regressed. He started wetting the bed again, something that hadn't happened in months. She needs to understand that money doesn't replace presence. Jennifer read page after page, each one a stab in the heart. Martha had documented all the moments she had missed, all the times her absence had hurt her son. But there was something else. In the last pages, the notes were different. They were about Shauna. Rebecca, or is it Shauna, is getting very close to Ethan. I noticed how she looks at him. It's not the look of a maid, it's the look of a mother. Does she know something I don't? The boss sent Shauna away. Ethan cried so much I had to give him the calming medicine. He misses her, and I miss her too. She understood the boy in a way that only someone who has had a special child can understand. I'm starting to suspect that there's something very wrong in this family. The boss is never home. The boss lives at work. And now this thing with Shauna, there's a secret in this house. I'm sure of it. Jennifer quickly closed the notebook when she heard Martha returning. But now she knew that the old maid suspected something. And if Martha suspected, how long would it take for her to discover the truth? That night, Michael called. It was rare for him to call when he was traveling, so Jennifer answered somewhat surprised. "We need to talk," he said, and his tone of voice was different. "About what?" "About Ethan. About us. About everything." "Are you okay?" Michael sighed on the other end of the line. "I found the documents about the DNA test. I know you saw them." Jennifer froze. "Michael, let me finish. I took that test 3 months ago because I had doubts. You were so distant, so closed off, I thought maybe there had been a betrayal. I never betrayed you. I know that now. When the result came saying I wasn't Ethan's biological father, I was in shock. But then I researched, I investigated, and I found out about the clinic. About the embryo switch. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't know how, and because I realized something. It doesn't matter whose DNA Ethan has. He is our son. I raised him. You raised him, or at least you should have. The last sentence stung. I know I failed as a mother. We both failed, Jennifer. I hid in work, in trips. You hid in meetings, in contracts. And who suffered was Ethan. What are you trying to say? I'm saying we need to change. Both of us. Or we're going to lose our son. Not to someone else, but to himself. He's going to close himself off so much that we'll never be able to reach him again. Jennifer began to cry. I don't know if I can. I don't know how to be the mother he needs. Then learn. I'll also learn to be the father he needs, but we need to do this together. Do you know about the biological mother? About Shauna? Silence on the other end. Yes. I found out when I was investigating the clinic. She lost the son that was biologically ours, and now she must be suffering because she knows her son is alive but being raised by other people. She came to work in our house, Michael. She came looking for Ethan. I figured. And you? What are you going to do? I don't know, I'm afraid. Afraid that she'll want to take Ethan from me. No one is going to take our son, Michael said firmly. But maybe we need to include her in his life in some way. She is the biological mother. She deserves at least to meet the boy. When are you coming back? Tomorrow. I've already said I'm taking a few months off. I need to be home. I need to get to know my son for real. After hanging up, Jennifer sat in the darkness of the rented apartment for hours. Michael was coming back. He was willing to change. It was everything she had hoped for, but still she felt lost. The next day she arrived at the mansion and found Martha agitated. What happened? The boss called saying he's coming back today and will be home for a few months. I don't understand what's going on. First the mistress takes leave, now he's coming back. Something's wrong. Jennifer wanted to say that finally something was right, not wrong. But she couldn't. Michael arrived in the late afternoon. Jennifer saw his car entering the garage and felt her heart race. It was so strange to see her husband coming to his own home while she was disguised as a maid. He entered through the kitchen, greeted Martha, and then his eyes met Jennifer's. There was a moment of recognition. She saw in his eyes that he knew. He didn't know how, but he knew that Maid was his wife. Michael said nothing. He just nodded slightly and went to look for Ethan. Jennifer discreetly followed him and saw the scene in the hallway. Michael entered his son's room, where Ethan was playing with his colored blocks. "Hi, champ," Michael said, and Jennifer noticed his voice was trembling. Ethan looked vaguely in his father's direction but said nothing. Michael sat on the floor beside his son and stayed there. Just stayed. He didn't try to force contact, didn't try to make Ethan talk or play. He was just present. Jennifer saw when, after almost 15 minutes, Ethan lightly touched his father's arm. It was a minimal touch, almost imperceptible, but it was there. Michael had tears in his eyes. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, Michael went down to the kitchen where Jennifer was still finishing cleaning. "Can we talk?" he asked softly. Jennifer looked around. Martha had already left. They were alone. "How did you know it was me?" "Your eyes. There's no wig or contact lens that can hide the eyes of someone we love." Jennifer felt something break inside her. It had been so long since Michael had said he loved her. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm sorry for everything. I have a lot to be sorry for too." They stood there in the kitchen of their own home, seeing each other truly for the first time in years. "What are we going to do?" Jennifer asked. "First, you're going to take off this disguise and go back to being yourself. Second, we'll talk to Martha and explain part of the situation. Third, we'll meet with Shauna and have an adult conversation about all this. What if she wants to stay with Ethan? Then we'll find a solution where everyone can be part of his life. Ethan doesn't need one mother or the other. He needs all the people who love him around him." The next day, Jennifer revealed everything to Martha. The housekeeper listened in silence without interrupting. When Jennifer finished, Martha shook her head. "I knew something was wrong, but I never imagined it was all this." "Are you mad at me?" "Mad? No, disappointed? Maybe a little. But I also see that you're trying to change, and that's what matters. Will you keep working here?" Martha smiled. "I will. But now you'll work alongside me. I'll teach you everything I know about Ethan, and you'll learn to be the mother he needs." The conversation with Shauna was more difficult. Jennifer invited her for coffee, this time without any disguise. When Shauna saw her, she turned pale. You're the boss." "I am. But I'm also the Mary you met at the bakery. I'm sorry for lying." "Why did you do it?" Jennifer took a deep breath and told her everything. The embryo mix-up, the son Shauna lost, the DNA test, everything. When she finished, Shauna was crying. "So Ethan, he's my biological son?" "Yes, and Noah was my biological son. I'm so sorry for what happened to him." "And why are you telling me this? Are you going to sue me for trying to get close to him?" "No," Jennifer said quickly. "I'm telling you because you have the right to know, and because I want to give you the chance to be part of Ethan's life." Shauna looked at her with suspicion. "What do you mean, be part of it?" "I don't know exactly how yet, but I know you love him, and I know he needs all the love he can get. So I want to find a way for you to be present in his life." "Why would you do this? Aren't you afraid I'll try to take him from you?" Jennifer shook her head. "I'm afraid, yes. Very afraid. But I'm more afraid of continuing to be an absent mother. And I realize that Ethan isn't property to be fought over. He's a child who deserves to be loved by all the people who care about him." Shauna remained silent for a long moment. "You would hurt me a lot if you changed your mind later, if you gave me hope and then took it away." "We won't change our minds. We're all in this together now." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. The following weeks were a period of adjustment for everyone. Shauna began visiting the house regularly, always accompanied by Jennifer or Michael at first. Ethan took some time to get used to her presence again, but gradually opened up. Martha, with her years of wisdom caring for special needs children, helped mediate the interactions. She taught Jennifer and Shauna to work together rather than compete, but not everything was harmonious. There were moments of tension, jealousy, insecurity. One afternoon, Jennifer found Shauna singing the same song Martha used to calm Ethan. The boy was leaning against her, relaxed, smiling. Jennifer felt such a sharp pang of jealousy that she had to leave the room. Michael found her in the hallway visibly upset. "What happened?" She's so natural with him. I'll never be able to be like that." "You already are. I saw you yesterday helping Ethan with the puzzle. The patience you had, the way you waited for him to process each piece, it was beautiful. But it's not enough. Look how comfortable he is with her. He's comfortable with you too, and with me, and with Martha. This isn't a competition, Jennifer. The more love Ethan receives, the better for him." Jennifer knew Michael was right, but it still hurt. It hurt to realize how much she had missed by always being absent. It was during a family therapy session that things truly started to fall into place. The therapist suggested they do an activity together, all of them, with Ethan. "Choose something Ethan likes," the therapist advised, "and do it together, without expectations, without pressures, just be present." Martha suggested they have a picnic in the garden. Ethan loved being outdoors, watching the trees and birds. The following Saturday they prepared everything. Jennifer made sandwiches. Martha taught her which were Ethan's favorites. Michael set up a toy tent in the garden. Shauna brought picture books she knew Ethan liked. And Martha supervised everything, ensuring the boys' routine was respected. When Ethan came down and saw all that preparation, he looked visibly confused. So many people, so many different things. He started rocking nervously. It was Martha who calmed him down. "Easy, my love, it's just a picnic, like the ones we sometimes have, remember? Only today there are more people with us." Ethan looked around, processing, then his eyes focused on the chocolate cake on the blanket. It was his favorite. Slowly he walked to the blanket and sat down. He picked up a piece of cake and started eating. It was a simple but powerful moment. Everyone there, gathered around a child, just being present. Jennifer looked around. Michael was trying to assemble a kite to show Ethan. Shauna was flipping through a book, pointing out pictures to the boy. Martha was organizing the plates, but with a smile on her face. And Ethan, at the center of it all, was calm. He wasn't having a meltdown, wasn't rocking anxiously. He was just there, eating cake, looking at the people around him. In that moment, Jennifer understood. It wasn't about being the best mother, or the biological mother, or the mother who was most present. It was about loving, simply loving that incredible child and doing whatever possible to make him happy. Tears came, but this time they were tears of relief. After the picnic, they established a new routine. Jennifer drastically reduced her work hours. She handed over the day-to-day management of the company to her partner Catherine and kept only the important strategic decisions. Michael also changed. He declined projects that required long trips. He started working from home whenever possible. Shauna got a job at a special needs school near the mansion. She was no longer a domestic worker, but a child development assistant, using her special education training that she had hidden for so long. And she visited Ethan 3 times a week. Martha continued working in the house, but now with a different role. She was the matriarch of the team, the one who taught everyone else about Ethan's needs, the one who kept the routine running when everyone else was lost. But not everything was smooth sailing. There were conflicts, there were arguments about the best way to raise Ethan, about therapies, about boundaries. One of these arguments happened when Jennifer suggested Ethan try a new music therapy. "He loves music," she argued. "It could help his development." "Or it could be just one more stressful thing in his routine," Shauna countered. "He already has occupational therapy, speech therapy, and physical therapy. That's 3 times a week. Don't you think that's too much? It's for his own good. Or is it for you to feel better, to feel like you're doing everything you can?" The argument escalated. Michael had to intervene. "You both have valid points," he said. "How about we talk to his therapist and see what he suggests?" That's what they did, and the therapist agreed that Ethan already had enough therapies, but he suggested that music therapy could replace one of the others, not be added. They voted. And they decided to replace physical therapy with music therapy, since Ethan had good motor development, but responded wonderfully to musical stimuli. It was these small moments of conflict and resolution that strengthened the group. They learned to disagree without fighting, to have different opinions but always with Ethan's best interests in mind. 3 months after the picnic, Ethan said his first complete sentence. They were all in the living room. Jennifer was showing him a book. Michael was organizing documents on the couch. Shauna had just arrived from her weekly visit. Martha was preparing dinner in the kitchen. Ethan looked around, observing everyone, and then said, clearly and distinctly, "Family." Everyone froze. "What is it, sweetheart?" Jennifer asked, her voice trembling. "Family," Ethan repeated, and then smiled. A big, genuine smile that lit up his entire face. Jennifer started to cry. Michael did too. Shauna covered her mouth with her hand. Martha came running out of the kitchen, wiping her tears on her apron. "Yes, my love," Jennifer said, hugging her son. "Family." But the journey wasn't complete. There were still challenges ahead. One of them arose when Ethan's school contacted them. The boy had hit another student during recess. It was the first time this had happened. Jennifer, Michael, and Shauna went together to the meeting with the principal, the same one who months earlier had suggested that Ethan go to another school. "What exactly happened?" Michael asked. "Ethan was on the playground when another student took his toy. Ethan reacted by hitting the boy." "And what did the school do to prevent this?" Shauna questioned. "Ethan has autism. He doesn't process frustration the same way other children do. There should have been a monitor with him." The principal became defensive. "We have monitors, but we can't be everywhere at once." "Then perhaps this isn't truly an inclusive school as you claim to be," Jennifer said firmly. The meeting ended with the school promising more support for Ethan, but in the car on the way home, the three talked. "Maybe we should really look for another school," Michael suggested. "One specialized in children with autism." "No," Shauna said. "Ethan can learn to function in diverse environments. He just needs the right support." "And if the school doesn't provide that support?" "Then we will," Jennifer decided. "I'll talk to them about hiring a therapeutic aide just for Ethan, someone who stays with him during the school day." And that's what they did. They hired a young educator named Jessica, specialized in autism, to accompany Ethan at school. In the first few days, Ethan resisted. He didn't want someone new in his routine, but Jessica was patient. She learned from Martha all of Ethan's habits, his likes, his triggers, and gradually the boy began to accept her. A month later, there were no more incidents at school. At home, the dynamics continued to evolve. Jennifer had learned Ethan's complete routine. She knew he liked to wake up at 7:15 in the morning, not before or after. She knew his breakfast had to have pulp-free orange juice, crustless bread cut into triangles, and never ever change the blue plate. She knew that on Tuesdays and Thursdays he had therapy at 3 in the afternoon, and that they needed to leave the house 20 minutes early to arrive on time, because if they were late, Ethan would get anxious. She knew that at bath time the water had to be warm, not hot, and that the soap had to be always the same, with the same scent, because any change caused stress. She knew that at bedtime Ethan needed 3 stories. Not 2, not 4, always 3. And that the bedroom light had to be turned off slowly, never all at once. They were small details, but they made all the difference. And Jennifer had learned each of them not through books or therapists, but by being present, observing, participating. Michael also had his own connection with Ethan. He had discovered that his son loved when he made funny voices while reading stories, and that Ethan had a peculiar sense of humor. He laughed when he saw mathematical patterns, when he saw symmetry in things. One evening, Michael was showing old photos to Ethan when the boy pointed to one. "Baby," he said. "That's right. You were a baby in that picture." Ethan picked up the photo and looked at it carefully. Then he pointed to Jennifer, who appeared in the image, holding the baby. "Mommy." "Yes, your mommy." But then Ethan picked up another photo. It was of Shauna, taken weeks earlier during a visit. He pointed to her too. "Mommy." Michael was at a loss for words. He looked at Jennifer, who was across the room. "Come here," he called. Jennifer approached and saw the photos. She immediately understood what had happened. Her first reaction was jealousy. Ethan was calling another woman mommy, but then she looked at her son, so serious, so focused on communicating something important. "Ethan, honey, do you have 2 mummies?" she asked softly. The boy looked at her and nodded. 2. Jennifer felt tears, but they weren't of sadness. They were of acceptance. That's right, my love. You have two mommies who love you very much. When they told Shauna the next day, she also cried. Are you sure about this? She asked. I don't want to confuse Ethan. He's not confused, Martha intervened. Children understand love. They don't need adult definitions about who is who. They just need to know they are loved. And so it was. Ethan had two mothers. Jennifer, who had raised him since he was a baby, who was learning to be present, and Shauna, who had carried him in her womb, who had his blood running through her veins. The two women learned to coexist. It wasn't easy. There were moments of jealousy from both sides. There were arguments about important decisions. There were tears and frustrations. But there was also growth. There was learning. There was love. And Ethan flourished. The boy who once barely made eye contact now looked into the eyes of the people he loved. The boy who rarely spoke now had a growing vocabulary. The boy who hurt himself during meltdowns now had tools to calm himself. It wasn't a cure. Autism isn't something to be cured. But it was progress. He was a happy child surrounded by love, having his needs met. 1 year after the day Jennifer first disguised herself as a cleaner, they threw a party. It wasn't Ethan's birthday nor any special date. It was just a celebration of family, of love, of second chances. Everyone was there. Jennifer and Michael, more united than they had been in years. Shauna, now an integral part of Ethan's life. Martha, the matriarch who kept everyone on track. Diane, the detective who had helped uncover the truth. Jessica, the therapeutic aide who was making a difference at school. And Ethan, at the center of it all, smiling. Jennifer looked around and felt gratitude. Gratitude for the people who loved her son. Gratitude for the painful lessons that had transformed her. Gratitude for the second chance life had given her. A toast, Michael raised his glass, to family, in all its forms. Everyone raised their glasses, even Ethan, with his glass of pulp-free orange juice on the blue plate. Family, he repeated, and everyone laughed and cried at the same time. But life never stopped surprising. And 3 months after the celebration, Jennifer received a call that would change everything again. It was from the fertility clinic. Mrs. Anderson, there's a development in your case, the secretary said nervously. What kind of development? It would be better if you came here in person, along with your husband. Jennifer and Michael went the next day. The clinic director was there, accompanied by lawyers. We discovered something, he began. Something that should have been discovered years ago. What was it? The embryo swap that happened wasn't accidental. Jennifer felt her blood run cold. What do you mean it wasn't accidental? The employee who handled the embryos, she did it on purpose. She was being paid by someone to sabotage specific procedures. By whom? The director hesitated. By a woman named Carolyn Parker. She was a patient at the clinic at the same time as you, Mrs. Anderson. Jennifer tried to remember. Carolyn Parker. The name sounded familiar, but she couldn't put a face to it. Why would she do that? Because she knew you. You worked at the same company years ago. Then Jennifer remembered. Carolyn, a co-worker who had been fired after a conflict with Jennifer over an important project. At the time, Jennifer was young, ambitious, unscrupulous. She had used confidential information to ensure Carolyn was blamed for an error that wasn't entirely hers. My God, Carolyn paid the employee to swap your embryo with that of another random patient, the director continued. It was revenge. She wanted you to raise a child that wasn't biologically yours to suffer without knowing why. Michael held Jennifer's hand. But that doesn't change anything, he said. Ethan is our son, biological or not. I agree, the director said quickly, but we thought you needed to know the truth, and also Carolyn wants to speak with you. Is she alive? She is, and she's very sick. Terminal cancer. According to the doctors, she has a few months to live. She wants to apologize. Jennifer didn't know what to feel. Anger, sadness, pity. I don't know if I want to see her. You don't need to decide now, the director said. But she left a letter for you. You can read it and then decide. The letter was in a plain white envelope. Jennifer opened it with trembling hands. Dear Jennifer, I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness. What I did was terrible, unforgivable. I was so consumed by anger, by the feeling of injustice, that I lost my humanity. When I was fired because of you, I lost everything. My husband left me. I couldn't get another job in the field. I ended up having to start over from scratch. And when I found out you were doing fertility treatment at the same clinic as me, I saw an opportunity for revenge. I paid the employee to swap your embryo. I wanted you to suffer like I suffered, but I didn't know the child you would receive would be special. I didn't know you would have to face such big challenges, and I never imagined this would haunt me for the rest of my life. For years I lived with the guilt, until I found out I was sick. The doctors give me a few months, and I realized I can't die without asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I only ask that you know I deeply regret it. And that, even though I don't deserve it, I hope you and your family are happy. Carolyn Jennifer finished reading and remained silent for a long time. I will meet her, she finally said. Are you sure? Michael asked. I am. Not for her. For me. I need to close this chapter. 2 days later, Jennifer went alone to the hospital where Carolyn was admitted. The woman was unrecognizable. The cancer had consumed her body, leaving only a shadow of the person Jennifer remembered. You came, Carolyn said in a weak voice. I did. Thank you. I didn't deserve it. Jennifer sat by the bedside. You're right. You didn't deserve it. What you did was horrible. It changed my life, my husband's life, Shauna's life, Ethan's life. You played with innocent people's destinies because of revenge. Carolyn began to cry. I know, and I'm sorry. But you know what's funny, Jennifer continued. If you hadn't done that, I would never have had Ethan. I would never have met Shauna. I never would have learned to be truly present in my son's life. You tried to destroy me but ended up saving me. I don't understand. I was a horrible person, ambitious, unscrupulous, willing to step over anyone to get what I wanted, including you. And yes, what I did was unfair. I owe you an apology too. Carolyn looked at her in surprise. You're apologizing to me? I am, because I recognize my part in all this. It doesn't justify what you did, but it helps to understand. And if there's one thing I've learned these past few months, it's that holding grudges only destroys us from the inside. So, do you forgive me? Jennifer thought carefully before answering. I'm learning to forgive. It's not easy, and it won't be instant, but I don't want to carry anger for the rest of my life. So yes, I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Carolyn cried more intensely. Jennifer stayed there holding her hand until she calmed down. How is the boy? Carolyn asked. Ethan? He's wonderful. Challenging but wonderful, and he's taught me more about love than anything else in life. I'm happy, truly. When Jennifer left the hospital, she felt as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Forgiving Carolyn wasn't about the other woman, it was about freeing herself. Carolyn passed away 3 weeks later. Jennifer attended the funeral, along with Michael. There weren't many people there. Carolyn's life had been lonely in recent years, but Jennifer was at peace with her decision. She had closed that chapter. At home, life went on. Ethan was progressing every day. He could already communicate basic needs, had learned to handle frustrations better, and was making friends at school. Shauna had become such an integral part of the family that sometimes Jennifer forgot it hadn't always been that way. She had dinner with them at least 3 times a week, participated in all important decisions about Ethan, was present at every doctor's appointment, every school meeting. The 2 women had found a balance. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. One night after Ethan had fallen asleep, Jennifer and Shauna were drinking tea in the kitchen when Shauna asked a question that had been stuck for months. Are you still afraid I'll try to take Ethan away from you? Jennifer thought before answering. Sometimes, I won't lie, sometimes I still have that fear, but it's getting smaller. I would never do that. I hope you know. I know. Rationally, I know. But fear isn't always rational. Shauna nodded. I have fears too. I'm afraid that you'll decide you don't need me anymore, that I'm just a complication in your lives. You'll never be just a complication. You're Ethan's mother as much as I am. Biologically. No, in every way. You love him, take care of him, are present. That's what makes a mother, not DNA. It was the first time Jennifer had said it out loud, and as she said it, she realized she truly believed it. Shauna started to cry. Thank you. You don't know how much this means to me. The two women hugged. It wasn't a hug of rivals pretending peace. It was a hug of allies, of companions, of mothers sharing love for the same child. Martha walked into the kitchen at that moment and smiled at the scene. Finally, she said. Finally you understood. Understood what? Jennifer asked. That family isn't about blood or DNA. It's about love, presence, choice. It's about waking up every day and deciding to be there, even when it's hard. You always knew, didn't you, Shauna said, that there was something off about all this. I suspected, but it wasn't my place to speak. You needed to figure it out on your own. And if we hadn't figured it out, you would have. Love always finds a way. In the following months, there were more challenges. Ethan began asking questions about his family, about why he had two mothers when his other classmates only had one. Jennifer, Michael, and Shauna decided to be honest with him, but in a way appropriate for his age and level of understanding. You're very special, Ethan, Jennifer explained. Most children have one mommy, but you have two, because you're so loved that you need two mummies to hold all that love. Ethan processed the information in his own way. He thought for several minutes and then said, Lucky. What do you mean, sweetie? I'm lucky. Two mummies, one daddy, Aunt Martha, Aunt Jessica. So much love. Jennifer felt her eyes fill with tears. Yes, my love, you are very lucky. And we're also lucky to have you. But the biggest revelation was yet to come. It was during a routine appointment with Ethan's geneticist. The doctor was reviewing the latest tests when he made a discovery. There's something interesting here, he said. What is it? Jennifer asked, immediately concerned. It's nothing bad. In fact, it's fascinating. Do you know about chimerism? No. It's when a person has two different sets of DNA in their body. It usually happens when twins merge in the womb, but it can happen in other ways too. And Ethan has this. He does. A small percentage of his cells have DNA different from the rest, and I was curious, so I compared it with the parent tests we have on file. The doctor paused. The minority DNA in Ethan's matches Mrs. Anderson's DNA. Total silence in the room. What does that mean? Michael finally asked. It means that somehow Mrs. Anderson's cells are present in Ethan's body. This can happen during pregnancy, when cells from the mother cross the placenta and establish themselves in the fetus. But I didn't carry Ethan. Shauna carried him. The doctor looked confused. What do you mean? Jennifer explained about the embryo mix-up. The doctor listened with growing attention. So you're saying that Mrs. Wilson carried Ethan, but the embryo was from Mrs. Anderson and Mr. Michael? Not exactly. The embryo was from Shauna and a donor. There was a mix-up at the clinic. The doctor became thoughtful. That doesn't make sense with the chimerism I'm seeing. Unless... He picked up more tests, compared results, made notes. We need to do more testing. But I have a theory. What if the embryo mix-up wasn't complete? What if somehow cells from both embryos mixed during the procedure? Is that possible? Extremely rare, but possible. If there was contamination during handling, if the embryos were very close and some cells mixed before implantation, Ethan could literally be the biological son of both. Jennifer and Michael were in shock. When they told Shauna, she couldn't believe it either. So he's genetically my son and hers. It's a possibility. We need more tests to confirm. It took 3 months of detailed genetic testing, but the conclusion was clear. Ethan had DNA from Shauna and DNA from Jennifer. It was an extremely rare case of chimerism caused by embryo contamination. Biologically, literally, he was the son of both mothers. When the results were confirmed, the two women sat in silence for a long time. So the universe decided he would truly be our son, Jennifer finally said. Or maybe we decided, Shauna replied, and the universe just confirmed. Do you believe in destiny? I don't know. But I believe some things happen for a reason bigger than we understand. Jennifer smiled. Me too. The news of the chimerism changed something fundamental in the family dynamic. Not that they didn't already feel connected, but there was something powerful in knowing that, scientifically proven, Ethan was the son of both. Martha laughed when they told her. I could have said that without any examination, just by seeing how much he looks like both of them. He has Jennifer's eyes but Shauna's smile, Jennifer's stubbornness but Shauna's sensitivity. Did you always know? My heart knew. I was just waiting for you to catch up. 2 years after the day Jennifer disguised herself as a cleaner, they held another celebration. This time it was official, a cross-adoption. Shauna was legally adopting Ethan as her son, not to take custody away from Jennifer, but to make official what was already true in everyone's heart. She was Ethan's mother. During the hearing, the judge asked Ethan a question. Do you understand what's happening here, Ethan? The boy, now 10 years old and communicating much better, nodded. Yes, Shauna is going to be my mother on paper too, just like Mommy Jennifer. And does that make you happy? Ethan thought for a moment. Very happy. Now I have 2 real mothers in every way. The judge smiled and signed the documents. At the celebration afterward, Ethan was beaming. He had made a drawing for each of his mothers. For Jennifer, he drew their house with everyone together. For Shauna, he drew her singing to him. I love you, he said, hugging them both at the same time. The 2 women, so different but united by their love for that child, cried with joy. Michael watched the scene with a smile. His journey had also been one of transformation. From an absent father, he had become present, involved, dedicated. Martha was in the kitchen, preparing Ethan's favorite chocolate cake. Even after all these years, she was still the family matriarch, the glue that held everyone together. And Jessica, the therapeutic companion, had become a permanent part of Ethan's life. The boy had progressed so much in school that he was now in a regular class with Jessica providing support only when needed. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, Jennifer went out into the garden. She looked at the stars and thought about everything that had happened. She had started as a cold businesswoman, focused only on work, oblivious to her own son's needs. She had disguised herself as a cleaner to find out who was hurting Ethan, only to discover that he was hurting himself. She had found out she wasn't his biological mother, that there had been an embryo mix-up, that there was a woman who had more rights to Ethan than she did. And through all that, she had transformed. She had learned what it truly means to be a mother. She had learned about presence, patience, unconditional love. She had found a family where she least expected it. In the housekeeper who cared for her son better than she did. In the biological mother who could have been a rival but became an ally. In the husband who was also relearning how to be a father. Shauna came out into the garden and stood beside her. What are you thinking about? About how strange life is, how a crazy decision to disguise myself as a cleaner changed everything. Do you regret it? Disguising myself? Never. It was the best decision I ever made. It showed me a world I didn't know. It showed me how much I was missing. And now I'm grateful. For everything. For the difficulties, the challenges, the discoveries. Because they brought me here. The 2 women stood in silence watching the moonlit garden. Shauna? Yes? Thank you. For what? For not giving up on Ethan. For continuing to try to be close to him even when I sent you away. For being the mother he needed when I wasn't being one. You're also the mother he needs. Now I am. But I wasn't before, and you could have held a grudge, you could have fought for custody in court, but you chose the path of partnership. I chose Ethan. I chose his well-being over my ego. I'm learning to do that too. Michael appeared at the door. Are there 2 women out here talking when they should be inside eating cake? They laughed and went back inside. Life hadn't become perfect. Ethan still had occasional meltdowns. There were still difficult days, arguments about the best way to handle situations, moments of frustration. But it was real. It was genuine. It was a family built not by blood or documents, but by the daily choice to love, to be present, to do the best they could. And in the end, that was what mattered. 5 years later, Ethan was 15. He was a tall teenager, blonde, with the same light blue eyes. He still had autism, still had his peculiarities, but he had flourished in ways no one could have predicted. He had discovered a talent for music. He played the piano with surprising skill, had perfect pitch, could reproduce complex songs just by hearing them. Jennifer and Shauna were in the audience at his first recital. Side by side, both nervous, both proud. When Ethan walked onto the stage, there was a moment of hesitation. So many people, so many lights, so much noise. Jennifer saw her son start to rock slightly and felt her heart tighten. But then Ethan took a deep breath, the way he had learned through years of therapy, and walked to the piano. He sat down. He placed his hands on the keys, and he began to play. The music was beautiful, an original composition he had worked on for months. Every note was perfect, every rhythm exact. Jennifer looked at Shauna and saw tears streaming down her face. She held the other woman's hand and squeezed it. "Our son," Shauna whispered. "Our son," Jennifer agreed. When Ethan finished playing, the audience erupted in applause. He stood there, processing the noise, the reaction, and then he smiled, that big, genuine smile that lit up his whole face. He looked out at the audience, found his mother's, and waved. In that moment, Jennifer understood completely. Everything she had been through, discovering the marks, the disguise, the revelation about the embryo switch, the conflict with Shauna, the personal transformation, it had all been necessary. It had been necessary for her to become the person she needed to be, the mother Ethan deserved. And looking at her son on stage, so confident, so talented, so loved, she knew it had been worth it. All the pain, all the fear, all the change, it had been worth it. After the recital, there was a small reception. Ethan was surrounded by people, teachers, classmates, family, but his eyes searched for only 2 people. When he finally reached Jennifer and Shauna, he hugged them. "Thank you," he said, "for everything." "You don't have to thank us, my love," Jennifer said. "I do. I know it wasn't easy. I know I'm different. I know you had to learn a lot of things, but you never gave up on me. And we never will," Shauna promised. "I know, and that's why I was able to do this today, because I know you're always here for me." Michael joined the hug, and then Martha, who had insisted on coming even though she was almost 80. Jessica also came over. It was an unconventional family, but it was a real family. That night, back at home, Ethan went to sleep exhausted but happy. Jennifer stood in the doorway of his room, watching her son sleep as she had done since she committed to being more present. She remembered the first time she had seen him like this, disguised as a cleaner unable to touch or comfort him. She remembered the pain of discovering she knew nothing about his preferences, his routine, about who he really was. And she thought about how much she had changed since then. Now she knew every detail about her son. She knew he always slept on his left side, that he needed 3 pillows, that he had to have a glass of water on the nightstand, even though he never drank it. She knew he dreamed about music, that he sometimes woke up in the middle of the night with melodies in his head, that he whispered musical notes in his sleep. She knew he was afraid of thunderstorms, but loved gentle rain, that he loved the scent of lavender, but hated that of roses, that he preferred books to movies, silence to noise, routine to surprises. She knew her son. Finally, truly, she knew, and that made all the difference. Shauna appeared beside her. "He was incredible today." "He was. Our boy is incredible." "Jennifer?" "Yes?" "Do you think if all that confusion with the embryos hadn't happened, if we hadn't discovered the truth, would we still have gotten here?" Jennifer thought carefully. "I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I would have remained the absent businesswoman. Maybe you would never have found Ethan. Maybe he would never have received all this love he gets now. So you believe it happened for a reason. I believe we made the best of a difficult situation. We took something that could have destroyed us, and turned it into something beautiful. That's a beautiful way to see it. It's the only way to see it, because the alternative is to get stuck in anger, resentment, pain. And I refuse. I refuse to let the past steal the present we've earned. The two women stood there side by side, watching Ethan sleep. Two mothers, one child, an infinite love. The next day, Jennifer woke up early and went to the kitchen. Martha was already there preparing breakfast. "Good morning, dear." "Good morning, Martha." The long-time housekeeper looked at Jennifer carefully. "You seem different today." "Different how?" "Lighter. Happier." Jennifer smiled. "It's because I finally understood. I finally fully accepted." "Accepted what?" "That the journey was as important as the destination. That becoming a cleaner in my own home, discovering all those painful truths, facing my mistakes, all of that was necessary, not for punishment, but for growth." Martha hugged Jennifer. "I always knew you'd get there, you just needed time. You never gave up on me, did you?" "Never. Because I saw potential in you from the start. It was just hidden under many layers of fear and ambition. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself." At that moment, Ethan came down for breakfast. Still sleepy, he went straight to his favorite chair, the third from the left, and waited for his blue plate. Jennifer prepared his coffee exactly how he liked it. She didn't need to ask, didn't need to check. She knew it by heart. Ethan ate in silence, as always, but at the end, he looked at her and smiled. "Good coffee, Mom." 3 simple words, but they meant the world to Jennifer, because years ago she wouldn't even know how to make her son's coffee. She wouldn't know that he needed exactly 1 spoon of chocolate powder, not 2. She wouldn't know that the milk had to be warm, not hot. She wouldn't know that he liked to stir exactly 15 times before drinking. But now she knew. She knew all that and much more. And that was victory. In the following months, life continued its pace. Ethan progressed in music, started giving small concerts at local events. Jennifer and Michael balanced work and family in a healthy way. Shauna was promoted at the school where she worked and was developing a special program for children with autism. And Martha, even with her advanced age, continued to be the heart of the home. But every story has its moments of tension, and theirs came when Ethan announced he wanted to audition for a music school in another city. "It's far away," Jennifer said, worried. "You'd have to stay in student housing." "I know, but it's the best music school in the country. I have to at least try. And if you don't adjust, you need routine, structure. Mom, I'm 16. I need to learn to live in the real world at some point." It was true, and Jennifer knew it. But the idea of Ethan being far away without constant support scared her. Shauna had the same concern. What if he has a crisis and there's no one there who understands? "The school has support for students with special needs," Ethan explained patiently. "I researched. They have therapists, psychologists, a whole structure. But it won't be like here at home. Nothing will be like here at home. But I need to try. I need to know if I can do it." It was Martha who brought sense to the conversation. "You're scared, that's normal. But Ethan is right. He needs to test his limits, find out what he's capable of, and if it doesn't work out, he comes back home. It's not the end of the world." After much discussion, they agreed to let Ethan try the test. If he passed, they would decide the next step together. Ethan passed, with the highest score. The acceptance letter arrived on a Saturday morning. Ethan read it silently, processing. Then he looked at his mothers. "I passed." Jennifer and Shauna looked at each other, both with tears in their eyes. "Congratulations, my love," Jennifer said, hugging her son. "We're so proud," Shauna added. "So can I go?" There was a moment of silence. "You can," Jennifer finally said, "but with conditions. You need to call every day. You need to keep your therapy appointments, even if they're online. And if at any point you feel you can't handle it, you come back home without any shame." "Deal." The preparation for Ethan's move was emotional. Jennifer and Shauna helped pack everything he would need. Martha made a list of foods he liked and sent it to the school cafeteria. Michael arranged the transportation. On the day of departure, everyone went to see him off. Ethan was nervous. They could tell by the way he was slightly swaying, by how tightly he held his backpack, but he was also determined. At the dormitory door, he hugged each one. "Thank you," he said, "for letting me try." "No need to thank us," Michael said. "You just make us proud." Ethan entered the building and waved one last time before disappearing. In the car, on the way back home, no one spoke. Jennifer held Shauna's hand in silence. Michael drove with his eyes fixed on the road. Martha wiped away tears discreetly. It was the end of an era and the beginning of another. The first weeks were difficult. Ethan called every day, as promised, but sometimes he was visibly stressed. He had some crises, some tough moments, but he also had victories. He made friends for the first time in his life. He discovered there were other people like him who understood his quirks. He began to accept himself in new ways, and his music flourished in surprising ways. 3 months later, he came back home for the holiday. He was different, more confident, more independent, more himself. During dinner, he told them about his experiences, about the classmate who also had autism and played the violin, about the teacher who understood his needs without him having to explain, about the first time he played for an audience of 100 people without having an anxiety attack. Jennifer and Shauna listened, amazed. The boy who years ago barely made eye contact was now telling stories animatedly, gesturing, laughing. "I'm proud of you," Jennifer said. "Of us," Ethan corrected. "Because none of this would be possible if you hadn't given me the necessary tools, if you hadn't been patient, dedicated, present." "You taught us as much as we taught you," Shauna said. "What do you mean?" "You taught us about unconditional love, about patience, about seeing the world in different ways, about not giving up even when it's hard." Ethan smiled. Then it was a fair exchange. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, Jennifer went to the old maid's room, the room where she had stayed when she was undercover years ago. The room was empty now, used occasionally for guests. But Jennifer could remember every detail of those days. She remembered the fear of being discovered. From the pain of seeing her son suffer without being able to openly comfort him, from the shame of discovering how much she didn't know about her own child. But she also remembered the discoveries, the lessons, the growth. That room represented a turning point in her life, the moment she stopped being a spectator and became an active participant in raising her son. Michael appeared at the door. "I knew I'd find you here." "How did you know?" "Because I know you. Every year you come here at this time, reflecting. Always. I need to remember where I came from, who I was, to never become that person again. You never will, you've changed too much. I'm still afraid of slipping, of going back to old habits. We all are. But the fact that you have that fear already shows you won't slip. Because you're vigilant." Jennifer looked around the room one last time before leaving. "Let's go." "Where to?" "Where we should be, with our family." And so they went, back to the living room, where Shauna and Martha were drinking tea and speaking quietly so as not to wake Ethan. Family. Not perfect, but real. Not traditional, but functional. Not based on blood, but on choice. And in the end, that was all that mattered. End of story. So, what did you think of this story? Do you believe Jennifer made the right decision by disguising herself as a cleaner? Leave your opinion in the comments. If you liked it, don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional stories we've prepared for you.